morning and a warm welcome to one and all present here. For architecture, the process is a series of repetitions and revisions. This forms the underlying theme to their built explorations in the studio. Being an interdisciplinary design studio, they pride themselves on their commitment to design. They handle a few select projects at a time with particular attention to details. Response to local tectonics remains a key feature of their design process. Nishant Mehta has been known for his creative vision and creation of subliminal aesthetic environments in all his designs for the past 8 years. He has a hand in designing homes for individuals as well as institutional buildings including the Sahyog School, Palanpur and the EMS Teachers Training College, Palanpur. His designs are contextual and well researched and seek to explore the inherent potential of the site to create spaces that are not only aesthetic but also climatically relevant. Through his designs, he experiments extensively with local materials and crafts that he then incorporates into his buildings. Nishant obtained his bachelor's in architecture degree from the Vidyanidhi Institute of Architecture, Mumbai, where he was awarded with B.G. Bhatt Award for Excellence in Design. He then went on to pursue a master's in architecture and urban design at the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation, Columbia University, where he was awarded an Honors Award for Excellence in Design. He then worked with the United Nations on a low-income housing project in Bogota, Colombia. Nishant then moved to Ahmedabad, India, where he worked with HCPDPM on several large-scale riverfront projects like the Amucha Land Development and Township Project in Bhutan and the Sabarmati Riverfront Project in Ahmedabad. He then set up his independent practice named Studio NM, based out of Mumbai. I would now hand over the mic to Nishant.
Hi everyone, good morning. This is the first time that the studio is actually presenting its work, so I'm a little nervous, so please bear with me if I ramble on. I'd like to thank everyone from KRVIA for giving us this opportunity to present our work, and we're really happy to be here today. So I'll just get right into it, and feel free to interject me and ask me any questions if you feel like even during this presentation. You don't need to wait till the end. So the presentation is titled R1, R2, Final for print. I think this is a title that we see on most people's computers or desktops, mostly during the end of the semester when it's time to finally print your drawing. And we've hinged the presentation around this because we realized that during practice, there's never anything that's absolutely final, even though it's built. So there's a constant series of revisions, repetitions, or changes that happen. So that's the reason why it's titled that, and I wanted to show you this through some of our built explorations as well. So we're a multidisciplinary practice. We're based out of Bombay, but we do a lot of projects in various cities around the country. And it's quite a schizophrenic practice in that sense because we're dealing with multiple scales and multiple types of projects at different times of the day. So at any typical day in the office, we're dealing with projects that are within the built realm. All of our unbuilt commissions that we really hope to get built one day. And that's us in the middle really trying to get shit done every day in the studio, which then that's what it is. Let me walk you through some of our built explorations, and that'll probably give you a glimpse into the nature of the practice. One of the first built explorations that we did was actually the Sahyog School in Palanpur. It's a unique school in the sense that it's for specially able students, and it's not for one special type of disability. So we have multiple types of disabilities housed in one school. And it was unique for us because this was the first commission that we got as a studio, so we really didn't know what to do with it. That's what we finally did with it at the end. That's how the school was built. And let me kind of unpack the process of this building for you. This school is located in Palanpur. It's north of Sirpur. It's in Gujarat on the border with Rajasthan, and it's located in a hot, dry, arid climate. Palanpur is an erstwhile princely state, and it's famous for its diamond jewelry and black and white photography. The town is slowly urbanizing, and this is the nature of urbanization that you see in the town. And the urban fabric as it exists today is quite low slung with flat roofs and like quite a low heighted town, I would say. And when we got the project, we really didn't have much time to mull over how to start the project, and we didn't really know where to begin because there was no precedence to kind of refer to. So we thought we'd go directly to the user group and start understanding our user group in great detail, and then also match that with the aspirations of the stakeholders in the project. So that's the user group that we're dealing with, the children from low-income backgrounds that have multiple kinds of disabilities. And we got right into understanding the ergonomics and anthropometrics that they would require for us to make a comfortable place of learning for them. And then like getting all those learnings and matching it with the aspirations of the stakeholders, because these guys are the ones that are actually giving us the money to do it. So we needed to take their ideas into account as well. So the site we were given actually sat inside an existing campus. We had a road on one side of it, on the right-hand side, which is the east side of it. That's the arterial road of the city. And there was an existing building on site. It was quite a green, verdant site, and we carefully demolished this building. And we retained all the existing vegetation that existed there because we thought the building already had a dialogue with nature, and that's something that we wanted to continue as well. For the design process, we actually did something that we thought was a little fun. Each one of us in the studio assumed a disability, and we made these mind maps. So we've asked people to walk through the plan or walk through the building with their disability in place, and then give us their suggestions or recommendations of the kind of spaces that they wanted. So this is a mind map for someone who is visually impaired, someone with autism, someone who is mentally challenged, someone with a physical disability, someone with a hearing impairment. And then in some sense we synthesized all of this when we started developing the form of the building. This is the site we were given with. There was an existing school there, and we had to plug in our building into this existing building. The existing landscape that was present on site, and this is the footprint that we got after the building setbacks and the government rules. That's the volume that we were able to extrude that fit in all the program that we had to fit in to make the school. But we thought it was getting too large, so we kind of punctuated it with creeks. This also came with the understanding that people with autism can't deal with long, narrow corridors, so we had to puncture it at places to give breakaway points. And then we modulated the heights, so the public programs got situated on the right-hand side closer to the road. The central block was a block of learning, a quieter block, and the block at the back was a block where you learn soft skills and a place for introspection. Because we were not given a lot of money to make this building, and Palanpur is a very, very hot place in the summer, the sun study became very critical for us. We studied in great detail how the sun moved through the site and the kind of temperatures that we were recording there. And that kind of led us to buffer the entire building from the south with a circulation block, so the harsh southern sun doesn't come into the school and you get a comfortable environment to study. Also, materiality became important. We used brick as a cladding material or a building material here because it gave the thermal insulation required to the school. And fenestrations and jalis were carefully articulated at this space. I'll just walk you through the building itself. That's actually how you enter the building there. That's the large assembly hall. These were the two creeks that kind of split up the building mass in the middle, and we have the workshop spaces on the ground floor here. That's the actual circulation block with the ramp and the storage. So that was the thermal buffer at the south. And we actually had a large banyan tree here. So the building mass here again kind of stepped back, we formed a courtyard, and then we had a ceramic and sewing workshop here. So that was a little more intimate, that space. And as with institutions, the places like the drinking water fountains and the toilet blocks are actually the places where most of the students actually do interact. So we wanted that experience to be fun. So that was situated around the widest creek here, and then we joined the building to the existing building on this side. On the first floor, we had a braille library and a staff room on the public face of the building. We had classrooms for learning on the floor above, and then we had a little computer lab which had computers for specially able students again. And this is where things got interesting, because it's not just a school where you teach students with disability, but it's also a place to teach the teachers to teach students with disabilities. So it was a living laboratory of sorts, and the second floor kind of helped you do that with remediation rooms, resource rooms, and classrooms again. Sectionally, our design strategy evolved in such a manner where the ramp was on the south. We had a large triple-heighted corridor space in the middle that allowed for visual communication and also for air to get expelled out. The workshops sat on the ground floor, and the quieter classrooms sat on the top floors again, and both of them oriented and open towards the north. So that's how the building kind of came up. We had Palanpur sits in a seismic zone, and we had to make sure that the structures were earthquake resistance up to 6 on the Richter scale. We had to provide ramps for people with disability, so that's a 1:12 scale ratio ramp. I spoke about the cooling in the building, and we used brick jallies on the top to create the stack effect, so the hot air would expand and rise and get expelled out of the building through the jolly, and the openings would pull the cooler air from the bottom. The large triple-heighted space actually helped with students with hearing disability a lot, because they couldn't actually hear the school bell go off. So they only saw the students walking back, filing back to class, and that's when they realized that break was over and they had to go back. So that visual connection really helped them. We also realized one thing, we did puncture the roof with skylights, and then we also realized that people with visual impairment have photosensitive skins. So they actually use this as a timestamp. So the way the light moved through the school, they actually used them as timestamps. They knew at what point in time where they were actually placed in the building. We had to adhere to universal design principles, so we had tactile flooring that was helping you navigate through the school. And another interesting thing was the use of these ribbed slabs. I'll get to it eventually in the presentation, but this was quite critical when we were designing this project. And yes, we had north light for this classrooms. And yes, corridors and signages, I'll get to that as well. So that's just how the section kind of, sectionally, that's how the building kind of evolved. This is the spaces for learning, the classrooms, and then you can see the volume kind of tones down and steps back again. And these are the more intimate spaces for workshops. And that's the linear longitudinal section of the building again. So the flooring actually became quite important, and it was a fun canvas for us to work in as well. We used it as a tool for navigation, so the yellow lines that you see are actually the tactile floor lines, but we didn't just use that as a tool. All the circulation spaces were rendered in rough Kota stone, so it was a textural element under your feet. And as you cross the threshold into spaces of learning, the flooring then became polished. So that tone difference within the texture was something that kind of helped students know when they were in a circulation space versus in a space of learning. And then we also had a little fun with the flooring. So we did these really cool inserts into the floor. So they're like geometric shaped inserts in different colors. So they also, like teachers now use them to teach kids, like, this is a red color square and this is a yellow color circle. So that's just how it went. Like that's the tactile flooring, the rough Kota flooring, the polished Kota flooring, and the circular inserts. And also the city was quite rich in terms of its heritage, and we really wanted the building to connect back to the city. And we tried to do it the best way we could. And this is what we got from it. So there was a lot of textures of exposed brick in the city as well. So we thought we'd continue that as materiality into the new school. Because of black and white photography, they had developed a lot of jali systems there because it gave good light and shadows. So that's again jalis that we appropriated in the school building as well. And we noticed this pattern of arches and ribs, arches and vaults in the city, and that's what we took back as our construction system. So these were ribbed slab structures. It's a very unique structure for the city. We actually had people coming in from the town figuring out what exactly is it that we're doing. And it involved a lot of detailing in terms of getting the construction drawings right for the shuttering, because these were custom made shuttering for us. And we did experiment a lot with its material. So we tried shuttering in plastic, and then we eventually ended up with this modular steel shuttering, which we could kind of de-shutter and sell back into the market to recover a lot of money. So again, like, the economics became quite important. So just in terms of that, we had 30,000 square foot, so we would need 30,000 square feet of shuttering, but we made the entire school with just 5,000 square feet of shuttering. So that's how we adjusted the economics. I just wanted to show you how we actually went about doing it. That's, like, when the slab is laid out, that's how the shuttering is laid. Then you tie your reinforcement bars in with it, and then you prop it up from the bottom to let the concrete settle and harden. And just post-construction, this is how the building looks. This is the interface of the building with the street. This is the southern face of the building. We created these little landscape berms which opened out to the playground. So it was a fun space for children to play, and we actually did see them using it quite a lot. Also, the dogs of the campus really used this space a lot. That's the entrance way into the school. That's the main triple-heighted circulation corridor. So each of the spaces above are linked with bridges or with connectors, and then that give you that sense of visual connection through the space. You can see the effect of light, like, through the jali that it has on the corridor again. And this is how we were able to maintain a visual connection throughout the 3 levels of the school. Yeah, that's just... So that's the circulation ramp again. It was quite critical for us to have to get this correct, because it was important. We had faculty members as well who were wheelchair bound, so we needed to get this right. And that's just me trying out the ramp on the wheelchair. Like I told you, this is we wanted the act of going to the bathroom and drinking water also to be a fun space. So we made it in this creek, which again opened out to an existing neem tree on site. We somehow, by looking at these photographs, we did realize that there was some element of braille that came through with these jalis. This was just a coincidence. We hadn't planned or designed for this at all. This is the actual assembly hall, the large congregation space that we have. And yeah, these are the workshops. This is a carpentry workshop again. So here you can actually see the textural change between the rough coater, the vitrified tile, the polished coater, and the concrete. So you see the transition happening through the floor. And they were also spaces to learn and work. So we had classrooms on the mezzanine level above. That's the existing banyan tree on site. So the building stepped back, and there was a small, like a ceramic workshop. The classrooms again. So we did this fun teeth detail at the flooring. So it just tells you the distinction between the space for the teacher and the space for the student. That's our library, and it actually had the east wall on that side, so there was a lot of light that was coming in, which was heating up the space. So we deployed a jali there to cut off the harsh light, but then we punctured the roof with skylights to bring in that light so that you could actually read in peace. And that's how it actually looks when the light falls through the jali. So this is where I had a little fun myself. I love these horses. They're from Koshina, which is like about an hour away from Palanpur, and I insisted we get these for the landscape of the school. And the landscape was also planned in a way that every entry point into the school, we planted a plant with a specific scent. So people who were visually impaired, they could actually activated their olfactory senses, and they knew exactly where they were because of the smell. We actually devised our own signage as well for the school. It's the first time ever that they actually have braille in Gujarati. It's generally always in Hindi. And behind the scenes, it was quite crazy. It's quite rigorous to get it done. You have to make a whole series of drawings, of working drawings, so that's how your plans come into play. Working drawings in section to give your levels and heights to the contractors, because they call you every morning asking for some height and some missing dimension. The flooring, so like the flooring that we spoke about, that's the kind of drawing that you have to send out to site to get that flooring actually made. And this is all backed by a BOQ, because this is your construction Bible, like everything has to correlate, go back to this. But sometimes, despite doing everything, shit happens and you deal with it every day. And despite your best efforts, you can't do anything. So we had a very, very over-enthusiastic contractor who removed the shuttering before it was actually time to do so. So that led to the cracking of our canopy slab just 2 months before the building was supposed to open. You're constantly having fights with your stakeholders because they're not aligning with your vision and they want something else. Like they wanted some weird purple color in the school, and I'm like, no, it's really odd. Also, like you make these drawings, right, which you think are really beautiful and they're very informative. But you go to site and you see that these are the laborers that you're actually working with. They don't know how to read your drawings. They don't understand how to correlate them. So it was a process of learning and unlearning for us. We actually tweaked the way we actually made working drawings a little bit. And this is your best friend and mortal enemy on site, your contractor. You're constantly fighting with him till the building is done. And clients come in with last minute changes. We actually had, just 10 days before the school was to open, they converted the seminar room that we had designed into a staff room. So we had to make those changes overnight, literally. So that's why it comes back to the title of the presentation, right? So you had an R1 version of the school, which was supposed to be only G+1. And somewhere during these 3 COVID waves and this pandemic, the school became a G+2 structure with an added element on the top. So it's a constant endeavor to change and adapt despite the situation you're in. So yeah, that's the school. We did another college at the same time as we were doing the school in Palanpur again. And that's the college building. It's a place for teachers training for M.Ed and B.Ed. But the challenge with this was we only had 10 months to design and build the school and hand it over to the clients. It was quite crazy. And actually Ayush from college, he was the project architect and he really lived on site and got it done. This is where it's located. It's also in Palanpur. It's very close to the other school. In terms of the form, we had a lot of restrictions here. This was a weird trapezoidal floor plate that we were given. It had a 100-year-old existing Karanji tree. There was an older building that we had to retain. We had the boundary wall of the road, and we had a playground on one side. So within all of this and the government setbacks is where we could place our volumes of the school. And we placed it in a way that we were allowed to carve out a courtyard in the center. And then we extruded that space to accommodate all the various requirements clients always have. And we connected these volumes with these very thin connector pieces, and then we started scooping them out for entrances, for light and ventilation, for spaces of pause. We actually had an older building on site, so we carefully kind of dismantled that and we salvaged all the doors and windows from that building again. We went through a process of documenting and cataloging each and every one of them. Then we got this information back to the studio, where we did our own little version of adaptive views. I don't even know if that's the right term, but that's what we called it. And we put back all these doors and windows into the new building in terms of the fenestrations and openings. So that's how it went back into the building, and that's how it finally looked when it was completed. That's the way the building was laid out. We had the large tree, which became a pivot point where the volumes kind of split up. And we had one block, which was the assembly or the multi-purpose hall block, which was an anchor point in the center. On the first floor again, there were classrooms which were serviced by a singly loaded corridor, which had these pockets which opened out for you to kind of sit in. And a similar kind of language on the second floor as well. It was quite a simple building in terms of its construction. And that's a drawing we had to use to explain to the contractor what exactly it is that we were making, because he was not understanding it. and post-construction, that's how the building looks. That's the tree that we were able to retain. That's the courtyard in the center with the pop-out spaces for pause, and that's how students actually use that space. The entryway that was connecting the internal courtyard to the large playground outside. So this actually got used quite a lot, we noticed. And we had one crazy suggestion from a client from one of the meetings. He came in and he bought this old Charokha. And he's like, listen, I've bought this, now you have to use this in the building somewhere. And we're like, it's such a modern building, where is it going to come in? So we thought we just use it as a extruded facade, which kind of overlooks the courtyard. So again, going back to the actual use of the Charokha. That's just the corridor and the classrooms. And that's Ayush admiring his work, because he's... So this, I wanted to leave it with this photograph. It was interesting because I told you that this is a college it was built as a college for teachers training. But if you notice carefully, it actually says nursery section Q. And that's because after designing, building and handing over this project to the client, they realized that they didn't have enough people to come in to take this course. So they changed this entire building to a CBSE school. So like, it's never consistent, right? You don't know like how they're going to be able to use it. And we try to take our learnings from this large scale into smaller scales as well. So this is a spa that we had actually done in Ahmedabad. And if you see the space, this used to be a duct area at the back. So it had all the bathrooms facing it. And because we were so engrossed with the study of light when we were making the school, I was like, we need to get natural light into the space. So we kind of removed all of it. We punctured the roof. We got a skylight in. And we used the sunk slab of the toilets to put in a little water body there. So it's quite zen, but it was quite ugly before. And that's a pre-massage area, so you're sitting there and waiting for your therapy to start before. We also got in little elements of materiality. We were obsessed with exposed concrete when we were making the school, so we got that tonality of grey into the space as well again. But it got too stark, so then we thought that when we went to the therapy rooms, we rendered them with a soft pink terrazzo hue. And we continue that play of materiality in even residential homes that we do in Bombay again. This is a very different kind of clientele, a very different kind of mentality. But we try to retain that element again in terms of making furniture, in terms of keeping the shell as clean and simple as possible, even in terms of the office spaces that we do. And this is actually a fun project. We're doing some social infrastructure or soft infrastructure for a steel plant in Alibag. So we're doing toilet blocks for them. So it's 270 toilet blocks that are deployed all over the plant. But again, the act of going to the bathroom should be good, right? So we wanted to make sure that natural light and like there's enough ventilation in that space. So that's something that we really kind of pushed for. And we're also doing like canteens for them, so spaces for eating, like, you know, after a very crazy day at the factory, you want a nice space to come and eat your meal. And we also don't always get to do large projects and big interiors, right? So we also do a lot of products, and this is where we think we have the most fun. We can experiment a lot, and then the learnings of this actually go back to informing us when we're doing our larger scales of design. So this is an easel that we made for a book that we had designed. And sometimes your crazy clients, they come to you saying, I want a boat. So you make them a boat. And that's how the boat finally looks. We did some coffee carts, like this is a large coffee cart for Satco, and I just wanted to leave it in the sense that this is some of the ongoing works at the studio, and at every day it's different. Projects are at construction level, some projects are at handover, some projects are stuck. So you have these very random discussions during the day at the studio, and every time it's always somewhere in between R1, R2, final and final print. So thank you so much.
I'd like to thank you for this insightful presentation. The floor is now open to questions. Leah. Hi. what was the process of acquiring these initial projects that you have?
That's interesting because I don't have a background. I don't have a family background in architecture, and it's different. But this project was actually, we got it at our wedding. Like somebody came up and said, "I'm actually from Palanpur," and they didn't know that most Palanpuris are just engrossed in diamonds, and that's the main focus of business. They didn't know that actually somebody from the community went out and actually did architecture. So when they did realize that, they're like, "Oh, we have this fund and we want to make a school, can you help us?" So we're like, "Sure, we'll help you." And that's how we got our first project. But it's quite different actually. We've actually gone and we've made project pitches and gone to clients with them, saying that this is the vision we have for your space. Sometimes they come up and see some of the older stuff and they come to you. It's quite varied actually. But that's how we got the school.
So, looking at your projects, like, is there a sort of identity you finally want to settle on as architects because of the kind of projects you're getting, or are still open to multiple kinds of things? As you said, you're sort of in this stage, but is there something you eventually want to narrow down on as a practice? Or
I don't know if narrow down is the right word, but we're quite young in our practice, so we are in that phase of experimenting and really going all out in terms of experimenting with materials, building technology types. Even in terms of processes, like how we do each project, we experiment a lot with that. I mean, Pala can attest to that if I'm wrong. And but yes, at some point in time, you do gravitate towards some of your comfort zones in terms of materials, in terms of things that you know you've made before and work, but you're constantly tweaking them to make sure that they are absolutely fit for this project. But yeah, I mean, I would say we would like an overarching building language, but there's not a similar cookie cutter typology that we're going for.
and in terms of programs or types of client, is there anything that you've done with the project that like, yes, more of that, please?
Yeah, so we really enjoyed, I'll tell you what I don't like. We don't like doing these residential homes with these very nagging clients that are asking you to fit every bit of their clothing into their wardrobes. So we enjoyed a lot doing institutional buildings, and we really enjoy doing our products because that's where we feel we can really experiment, we can kind of test out our ideas. So that's two scales we really like working on.
Any more questions?
Hi, so particularly for the school that you designed,
Yes.
like how did you go about interacting with your clients? Like, did you only talk to the stakeholders, or did you also talk to the user group who will eventually use it? Because like you said, eventually it ended up like a CBSE school. So did you design it with the thought process of designing it for especially able kids, by like talking to them and seeing what kind of spaces they interact with by including that in your design?
So actually there were two different projects. One was a school for specially able students and one was a college. But just talking about the school for specially able kids, the clients were all based in Bombay and the user group was in Palanpur. So a physical interaction between both of them was only possible when the clients actually visited site. So we used to visit site, we used to travel to Palanpur maybe thrice a month, go get information, come back from them, sit with the clients on the dining tables till really late in the night, and just try to be the spokesperson for those kids. Just try to kind of get as much possible from them. But there were certain interactions eventually into the project because the clients also then started to get clued into your process and they also understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Hi. So I grew up in a school that had a lot able kids, but disabled kids also,
Okay.
and in the same classroom, so that we could learn from each other.
Okay.
So how did you all distinguish the classrooms? Like, was it standard wise? Was it visually impaired here? wheelchair kids here. How is it distinguished?
So in terms of the distribution of the classrooms, the school program itself was not so structured. They didn't have the regular 1st to 10th classes, if that's what you're asking. And also these children come from low income backgrounds, so they don't necessarily join the school system at the age they're supposed to be joining. So it was varied in terms of their skill sets and in terms of their abilities. And we were not allowed to choreograph that their kind of division making. But what we see actually happening in person is in a classroom you will find people who are visually impaired, hearing impaired, as well as physically challenged, all partaking the same course or learning. Hi.
How do you think Mumbai as a city influences your practice? And what do you think, will you move out of the city if there are more institutional projects happening out of the city in Gujarat?
That's quite, yes, we are located in Mumbai, and that's where I've grown up, I'm born and brought up here, so obviously the city has influences on you. But most of the institutions and most of the projects we do are not in the city. They are different places around the country, like in Gujarat and Masuri and Vijayanagar. So it's very varied. So just being very practical about it. But like Bombay architects or Bombay people, you can eke out as much space as possible from a space. So that's a skill set I think that the city's taught me, especially which is relevant to the construction of projects. But yes, we do see ourselves situated here, but practicing all over the country.
Yeah, hi Nishant.
Hi.
Wonderful presentation, beautiful work. So my question is, working in a small town, was it difficult for you to find the kind of skilled labor to pull off this sort of beautiful workmanship, or was it a learning curve, or did you have to train them? So what was that process like?
It was an absolute nightmare to begin with, because they all know how to do your regular cookie cutter straight beam column structures, and they're quite skilled at doing that. And when we came to them saying we want to do these rib slabs, like "Pan sir and a flat kari do ne, fatapat thai jise." Like these are the kind of conversations they used to have, But it was interesting because you need just one person from their team who's kind of motivated or pushed to doing it, and if you get that one person and you kind of brainwash him a little bit, then your project kind of flows smoothly. And that's exactly what we did. That's our trade secret. We found that one guy, and I'm like, "Tujhe karna hi hai aise," and then he got it done. But yes, it was quite a challenge. We do see this challenge in terms of labor throughout. Like we do notice, like places like Gujarat and Rajasthan, they have a little more skill in their labor, but places in
Question regarding the specially abled school.
Yes.
So while you had, there is university guidelines and stuff you can follow to design for them, how did you cater to the intellectually disabled part of the section?
In what sense? Sorry.
So while for example, for the visually impaired kids, you can put something related to scent, or
Yes.
you can design big spaces which would make them photosensitive.
Yeah.
But what about kids who have their motor functions is fine, but they're intellectually disabled?
Yeah. So we realized when we looked at the student kind of population that a lot of students did come in with who were diagnosed with autism, and while studying the disease, we realized that it's a disease that's based on trigger points. So a lot of trigger points were the use of loud color. So they were triggered by the use of these really bright colors. So if you notice the images of the school, the entire palette is extremely muted. There are these creams and whites. That's the entire kind of palette of the school. Also, the only color that was soothing for them was blue. So we did some elements, like some circulation elements, some kind of wall niches in blue. Also, like I mentioned, that they can't do long continuous spaces together. They need that break, that breakaway point. So we have the large corridor, but we broke it up with creeks and little punctures and pocket spaces for them to sit and kind of break away. Also, this is, I don't know if it's from our learnings or from a guideline or whatever, but those berms that we made, we actually realized they were used a lot more by the children because their bodies used to get very tense, physically tensed up, and then they used to like arch themselves on the berm to relieve that tension. That's something that we noticed with 1 or 2 children. I don't know if that's a template or that actually happens. It was just those kids, but I think that's where your design kind of maybe helps them in that sense.
Hi, so what actually sort of, made you like sit down one day and go, okay, I want to set up a firm,
It's actually, it's a very, very valid question because you never know when you need to stop working with somebody or stop getting that experience and then you're kind of ready to set up your own practice. For me, it was like, I was very frustrated working. I got really fried. I worked a lot before and I was like, I don't want to take instructions from anybody, not knowing that when I set up my own practice I'll have to take instructions from everybody. So, but it was a breaking point actually, and it came because of, like, I personally also I got married, so I thought I want to set up my own practice and move on, but that was my point. But there was no great moment of revelation. It was quite smooth.
Thank you.
No worries.
Any more questions? That is it for today. So on this note, we'd like to end the encounter. Thank you so much for coming to the call.
Thank you.